So there's this book series that it seems like nobody but me has ever read. I've never met anybody in real life that's even heard of it except my brother, whom I forced to read it because I was so obsessed with it. Excuse how loud my chair is, oh my god. It's a trilogy of German children's books called Verliebt in Serie, which roughly translates to In Love the Series, which is a pun. I'm gonna get into that later. From what I've been able to find, it doesn't seem like this was ever translated into anything other than German, which is why I want to make this video in English, because that way you will be able to reach people that otherwise would never have an opportunity to even find out about this. As I said, I'm obsessed with it and I need other people to find out. I'm considering, or rather planning on, making one of those summary videos about it, but I know that they're a lot of work, so that's probably going to take a while. This video, however, is just going to be a review and me telling you about the premise, which is the best part of this book, and my experience the 2 times that I've read the series all the way through. I'm telling you the premise so that hopefully once the summary comes out you'll actually want to watch it. But first, some background info on these books and on my experience with them. The series consists of 3 books. The first one's called Rosen und Seifenblasen, or Roses and Bubbles. The second one is called Lilien und Luftschlösser, which translates to Lilies and Castles in the Sky, or I looked it up and it said that Daydreams is like more of an appropriate translation. And lastly, Tulpen und Traumprinzen, which means tulips and princes of your dreams. There's not really like a direct translation that works well in English. According to every single source I was able to find, these books came out in 2014, 2015, and 2016 respectively, which is weird because here's this picture of me on vacation in 2015 reading what I think is the second book, except I could swear on my life that I actually brought all 3 books on this trip, but apparently the third one wasn't even out yet, so I don't know what's going on there. At this age, I was 11 in that picture, I think. I was reading like the Click series or the Princess Diaries or Dork Diaries, and I think this has a very similar, you know, like tween vibe, where the protagonist is this like very messy, meddlesome teenage girl, and I just love that. She's kind of a girl failure too. But I think in this series there's actually also some events, themes, what have you, that would seem more appropriate in a YA book rather than like middle grade, I think. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll get back to that later. A couple years ago when I was in 10th grade, so like about 16, I reread this series because I remembered really liking it, and I remembered what the premise was and some of the events, and all of that sounded really good to me. However, I was sorely disappointed by the writing, and I'll get into that some more. I also wanted to find people to commune about this book with, but I checked on YouTube, and to this day the only type of video you will be able to find about this book series are like book reviews from these adult women from like almost 10 years ago, and that's just not really the kind of fandom that I really wanted to be in at 16. In preparation for this video, I looked at how many people logged it on Goodreads, and for the first book it's like 700 something, and then it keeps declining to the point where for the third one it's like 400 something people. So safe to say the series is kind of a deep cut. But you're probably wondering, what are these books even about? Why do I keep talking about the years I read it? You want to know what the book is about. I'm going to tell you. I already told you the premise is the best part. These books center around a teenage girl called Abby who lives in New York City. And right off the bat you might think that that's a little bit weird because it's a German book. At this time it was like a huge trend. If you know like Maxton Hall or the Gemstone series, it was a huge trend for these teen or tween books to be written in German for German audiences, but then set in English-speaking countries, especially the US or the UK. Anyway, Abby lives with her sister and her mom. Her mom and sister are obsessed with this daily soap opera called Ashworth Park, which is very like Downton Abbey-esque. I think I've never seen Downton Abbey, but it's about this aristocratic British family, and they're, you know, very messy, very scandalous. I feel like I say messy too much in this video. I already apologize. But, you know, there's scandal, there's cheating, there's intrigue. They have all the, like, soap opera cliches. Like, somebody from their past coming back and they don't recognize them, and it's like bad news. They have, like, the broody character that's into photography or whatever, and they have the golden boy who's like a ladies' man at the same time. Well, Abby hates this show, even though, again, her family's into it. But then one day she gets isekai'd. I think that's what isekai means. I don't really watch anime, I'm sorry. She gets transported into this TV show world, and it's kind of freaky. It works by like TV show rules, so she can't like smell or taste things, even though the characters can. But yeah, as I mentioned, the show airs daily, like a new episode daily. So every day between, I think it's 7 p.m. to 8 p.m, she disappears from the real world and then spends however much time the episode takes in the TV show world. So like if the episode that comes out that day depicts the events of a week, she actually experiences a week of time in the TV show world, but then when she comes back to the real world, only an hour has passed. Kind of like Inception. This also means she never knows when she's gonna get transported back to the real world, because usually the episode ends on a cliffhanger, but she's not always part of the storyline that the cliffhanger is a part of. So she might not even be like on screen when the episode ends, and she's just like doing something random that has nothing to do with anything, and she just disappears into thin air, and sometimes the characters see that. Abby understandably hates this whole ordeal, so she wants to find a way to stop getting isekai'd. She ends up planning to end the whole interdimensional travel by making the show end. Basically, she wants to force it to have a happy ending, so that way the show will have no choice but to finish airing, and she will hopefully just stop getting transported there and live the rest of her life like normal. The way she plans on doing this is by meddling in people's business a lot, and it gets very chaotic and fun and entertaining. She reminds me a lot of Devi Vishwakumar from Never Have I Ever, and also Kitty from XO Kitty and To All the Boys. That's very much like that level of meddlesome is what we're dealing with, and I love that. It's also even messier because she starts out already with a crush on one of her real life classmates, but then against her will she becomes part of this like love triangle with the two brothers in the TV show. It's amazing. It's amazing, and I usually hate those like brother love triangles, but this one ate, okay? Especially with one of them, it's kind of like an enemies to lovers. It's amazing. I don't want to yeah, watch the summary when it comes out, girl. And as the series goes on in the later books, we even have one of the characters from the TV show getting, I guess, reverse isekai'd to the real world, and it also all hell breaks loose. It gets very crazy. They talk about how this like pocket dimension TV show even like managed to exist. It's a whole thing. There's just a whole lot of crazy shit that goes down, and I love it. But as you might remember, I said I had my problems with the writing upon rereading it, and I'm gonna get into that right now. Let's get into my gripes. When I reread the series, I was kind of unsure what age group this was meant for, because the first book feels appropriate for like elementary schoolers, and then the second book is very solidly middle grade, and then the third one has people like getting blackout drunk and making scenes and like making out on couches, kissing down people's necks. Like, it was a whole thing, and I feel like that's inappropriate for a middle grade book. But I went ahead and looked it up, and on the author's website it says that it's supposed to be for ages 11 and up. I don't know how that works with the things I've mentioned, but another thing that made me really confused about the whole age group thing is that there's those like running gags that kids books sometimes have, and it's very childish. I don't remember how I felt about it the first time I read these books at like 11, but reading it at 16, I remember how much it annoyed me to no end. And again, like, the themes of these books get progressively more mature as we go along further in the series. So I really don't understand why the humor didn't mature with it at all. There's also some slightly more obvious problems with the writing, namely the characterization of the main character is a little bit different from the first book to the second book, because in the first book she doesn't just hate the TV show that she gets transported into, she hates all TV shows. I remember her mentioning something along the lines of like, why don't you just read a book instead, type of thing. But then in the second book she keeps like referencing TV shows that the readers might know, like Gossip Girl or Teen Wolf, and it's never explained why all of a sudden her interests shifted like that. And then there's the even more obvious slip up of having the first chapter of the first book be written in the present tense, and then the whole rest of the series is written in the past tense. How did nobody notice that before it went to publishing? Because that's another thing, it was traditionally published. There's even, like, to this day, a website that looks very aggressively 2010s. I'll put a link to that in the description just in case you want to, like, do their puzzle games or whatever. I think I'll probably explain this in more detail once I make the summary video, but I feel like this show is, like, the perfect source material to make one of those YA, like, Netflix or Prime Video shows out of, because think about it, like, with Winx, everybody hated that they took away, like, the colorful aspect of it all and like the glitter and glitz and glam and friendship and all that. Like, they made it gritty and kind of depressing from what I've heard. I haven't watched it, but I think maturing this book to actually be YA the whole time instead of doing this weird first it's elementary school, then it's middle grade, then it's YA thing would actually be beneficial. Like, if they take the more childish aspects out of the first two books and then adapt it into a TV show with 3 seasons, I think that would be perfect. And usually, you know how there's a lot of fans of a source material and they get really upset with every change they make. The only bitch who's gonna have a strong opinion on this is me, and my opinion is you should change it. So nobody's even gonna get upset about it. Also, because this whole like isekai trope isn't really a thing in Western media, especially not these teen shows that are coming out right now. They're all quite like realistic, I'd say, and I feel like it would be perfect if we take that like realism and then add the sprinkle of magic into it, magical realism. I think it would make it really interesting, and it would not make it feel like a rip-off of like every other fucking show that's coming out right now, you know? You know how a lot of people complain about adaptations like making things more diverse? I think this is like the perfect source material, again, because first of all nobody knows about it, and second of all because it already like set up the possibility for like people to be gay or be people of color without actually going through on it. And I personally think that it would make the story better, but again, I'll get more into that in the summary. I'll give you a little snippet though. One of the characters, the one that's like this ladies' man, right? In the epilogue of the third book, so the very, very end of the series, it's hinted at that he might have been gay the whole time, and that's why he was able to like be a ladies' man and pursue all these women without ever actually catching feelings for any of them. And I think it would be really interesting if this was adapted, and then in the adaptation the audience at least knows him to be gay the whole time. Maybe he even has a male love interest, I don't know. I think it would be interesting to like explore how internalized homophobia works for him specifically, and also how that would like hurt his golden boy image because he's part of such a traditional family, you know? So to summarize, this book series has a very interesting premise and a satisfyingly messy plot, complete with a brother love triangle, but unfortunately it is basically unknown, never got translated, and the writing is kind of lazy. So I am gonna make a summary video for all y'all to be able to experience it, so I'm gonna make it in English, and I hope people find it just as entertaining as I do. That's all I have to say for this video, and I hope you'll tune in once I make the summary. If I've piqued your interest and you don't want to miss what comes next, consider subscribing. I don't really upload that much, so I'm not gonna be too annoying. There's no guarantee the algorithm's gonna bring you back. Thanks for watching. I hope you liked this video. You could let me know by giving it a like or telling me whatever's on your mind in the comments. And yeah, bye!